They said the boys scared every maid away. What no one noticed was that the boys were afraid first. By the time the 11th maid quit, the house had learned to expect chaos. Raised voices, broken routines. Doors slammed shut before breakfast was finished. But that morning was different. The triplets sat quietly at the table, hands folded, heads bowed. The new maid moved carefully between them, setting down plates no one had touched before. No shouting, no fear. When their father stepped into the room, he froze. He had never seen his sons pray together. He had never seen them this still. And what he didn't know yet was that this calm wasn't peace. It was a warning. Before we continue, please like, share, and subscribe, and tell us in the comments where you're watching from. Now let's dive back into the story. Iris Bellamy stood in the marble foyer of the Reed estate, gripping her worn duffel bag as sound crashed over her like waves. Not screaming, not tantrums, just noise. A toy truck skidded across the hallway upstairs. Someone, Silas, maybe, was narrating a battle scene in fierce whispers. Bennett's laughter echoed from somewhere she couldn't see. Caleb's footsteps thundered overhead in a rhythm that suggested he was jumping from furniture. "They're too much," Mrs. Holloway said flatly, the outgoing housekeeper who'd lasted 3 weeks. Her eyes were ringed with exhaustion. "They run everyone off. Don't say I didn't warn you." Iris nodded slowly, watching the older woman flee toward her car like the house was on fire. The front door clicked shut. Silence dropped like a curtain. Iris tilted her head. The boys had stopped. All of them. At once. She climbed the curved staircase, her footsteps soft on imported rugs. At the landing, she found them. 3 identical faces peering around a doorframe. Silas in front, arms crossed. Bennett half hidden behind him. Caleb gripping a stuffed dinosaur, watchful. They weren't bracing for discipline. They were bracing for disappointment. "You're the new one," Silas said. "Not a question." "I am." "How long you staying?" Bennett asked. "As long as I'm needed." Caleb's grip on the dinosaur loosened slightly. "That's what the last one said." Iris crouched to their level, setting her bag down. She noticed then what Mrs. Holloway hadn't mentioned, what none of the reports had mentioned. The boys weren't interrupting each other. Silas spoke, then Bennett, then Caleb. A rotation. Practiced. Like they'd learned that fighting for attention meant losing it entirely. They weren't reacting to rules. They were reacting to absence. Some houses aren't broken because of noise. They're broken because no one is listening. Iris stood and met 3 pairs of watchful eyes. "I vivis. And I don't scare easy." Silas's jaw tightened. "We didn't scare them. They just left." "Then they didn't see what I see." "What do you see?" Caleb whispered. Iris smiled softly. 3 boys who've been auditioning maids instead of finding one who stays. Bennett blinked. Silas looked away. Caleb took 1 step forward. Then a door slammed downstairs. Harlan Reed, home from wherever billionaires disappeared to. The boys scattered like ghosts. And Iris realized this house didn't need discipline. It needed a witness. Most people would label these boys and move on. Staying means seeing what others missed. But as Harlan's heavy footsteps climbed toward her, Iris wondered, what if the boys weren't the real reason everyone ran? Iris found a logbook in the kitchen drawer, a leather-bound record every maid was required to keep. Meal times, bedtimes, incident reports. She flipped backward through the pages. Maid number 11, duration 4 days. Final entry. Prepared breakfast per Mr. Reed's specifications. All 3 boys present. No one ate. No one spoke. I asked if something was wrong. Mr. Reed reminded me that mealtimes are for routine, not conversation. I resigned at noon. Iris's finger traced the hurried handwriting. A silent breakfast. Food untouched. 3 children sitting like statues while their father read the financial section. She turned back further. Maid number 9, duration 9 days. Final entry. Bennett was crying in the library. I don't know why. When I knelt to ask what was wrong, Mr. Reed entered and told me my job was maintenance, not mothering. He said comfort creates dependence. I was instructed to return Bennett to his room and resume my tasks. I left the next morning. Iris closed her eyes. A child crying alone. And comfort was called interference. Maid number 7, duration, 6 days. Caleb scraped his knee in the garden. I cleaned the wound and offered a bandage with a cartoon character on it. Mr. Reed saw and said I was undermining structure with sentimentality. He prefers plain medical supplies. Function over feeling. I packed that evening. The pattern emerged like bones beneath skin. The maids hadn't failed. They'd cared and been punished for it. Iris set the book down as footsteps approached. Harlan Reed entered the kitchen, perfectly pressed even at 7 a.m., holding his phone like a weapon. You've read the logs, he said. Not a question. I have. Then you understand standards. Iris met his gaze. I understand why 11 women walked away. His jaw tightened. They walked away because they couldn't follow simple protocols. They walked away because you told them not to love your sons. Silence dropped between them like a blade. Harlan's voice went cold. Love is not in your job description, Miss Bellamy. Consistency is. Order is. Those boys need structure, not another person who'll leave when things get difficult. Structure without warmth isn't protection, Iris said quietly. It's isolation. You've been here 2 days. Don't presume to understand my children. I understand that comfort was treated like interference. That order mattered more than care. Harlan stepped closer. One more speech like that, and you'll be maid number 12. But as he turned to leave, Iris saw it. The slightest falter in his step. The way his hand gripped the doorframe, just a second too long. He wasn't protecting his sons from attachment. He was protecting himself. They didn't fire the maids for failing. They left because success wasn't allowed. And Iris realized the triplets weren't the problem. Their father was running too. Iris didn't follow the morning routine outlined in the logbook. Instead of standing by the breakfast table with her hands clasped behind her back, position of authority, the manual said, she sat down, not at the head, not across from Harlan's empty chair, but at the side, where the light from the window caught the steam rising from her coffee. The triplets froze mid-step in the doorway. Silas entered first, eyes darting from Iris to the chair she occupied, the one no maid had ever touched. Bennett followed, clutching his book bag. Caleb came last, slower, watching. Iris didn't speak, didn't smile, just sipped her coffee and gazed out the window as if sitting at the family table was the most natural thing in the world. Silas pulled out his chair. Saturday. His shoulders were rigid, ready. Bennett glanced at Iris, then at his brother, then carefully took his seat. Caleb remained standing. Iris noticed his hands, small fists opening and closing at his sides. Not angry, measuring. She kept her own hands visible on the table, palms down, fingers relaxed. Caleb sat. What Iris saw that morning wouldn't make sense until much later. They ate in silence, but it wasn't the cold silence described in the logs. It was cautious, watchful. Silas kept looking at the kitchen doorway, the exit, tracking every sound from the hallway beyond. Bennett dropped his fork. It clattered against the plate. Iris didn't flinch, didn't correct him, just continued buttering her toast. Bennett picked up the fork with shaking hands, waiting. When nothing happened, his breathing steadied. You're supposed to tell us to be careful, Silas said finally. Testing. Are you hurt? Iris asked. No. Then you already know. His eyes narrowed. The other maids would have. I'm not the other maids. Caleb's gaze hadn't left her hands. Not her face. Her hands. Watching for the moment they'd move too fast, reach too quick, grab instead of guide. Iris understood then. This wasn't about obedience. It was about predictability. These boys weren't testing if she'd stay. They were testing if she was safe. She finished her toast and stood slowly, movements telegraphed, non-threatening. "I'll be in the garden if you need me." She walked toward the door, not rushed, not lingering, just existing in their space without demand. "Why'd you sit with us?" Caleb's voice was barely a whisper. Iris paused. "Because that's what people do. They sit together. Dad doesn't." "I know." Silas stood abruptly, chair scraping. "He'll fire you for that." "Maybe. Then why do it?" Iris met his eyes, so young, so guarded. "Because some things matter more than keeping a job." She left them there. 3 boys sitting in confused silence at a table where, for the first time in months, someone had chosen to stay. Outside, she leaned against the garden wall and exhaled. This is the moment most people stop watching, right before the story turns uncomfortable. Because Caleb hadn't been watching her hands for kindness. He'd been watching them for violence. The morning light spilled through the dining room windows like something sacred. Iris set the plates down slowly. Eggs, toast, fruit arranged simply. No performance. No rigidity. Just breakfast. She stepped back, expecting the usual. Silas would eat mechanically. Bennett would push food around his plate. Caleb would finish first and ask to be excused. But they didn't move. Silas glanced at his brothers, then at Iris. Something unspoken passed between them. A decision made in the silent language of children who'd learned to communicate beneath adult radar. Without instruction, without prompting, they scooted their chairs closer together. The scraping of wood against marble echoed through the empty house. Bennett's hand reached out first, tentative, finding Silas's. Then Caleb's small fingers wrapped around Bennett's other hand. Silas completed the circle, his palm covering Caleb's. 3 heads lowered. Iris's breath caught. "Dear God," Silas whispered, voice trembling but sure. "Thank you for this food." Bennett's eyes were squeezed shut. "Thank you for keeping us safe." Caleb hesitated. Then his small voice joined. "Thank you for Iris." The silence that followed wasn't empty. It was full. Full of something the Reed house had never held. Not obedience, but surrender. Not performance, but presence. They'd never prayed together. They'd never been this quiet without fear underneath it. They'd never chosen togetherness. A shadow fell across the doorway. Harlan Whitaker Reed stood frozen, one hand still on the doorframe, his phone forgotten in his other hand. His briefcase hung from his shoulder, car keys dangling, caught mid-escape to whatever meeting he'd prioritized over breakfast. His sons didn't see him, but Iris did. She watched his face, the shock that rippled across his features, like a stone dropped into still water. His lips parted. His eyes moved from boy to clasped hands to bowed heads. He had never seen silence without fear behind it. He had never seen stillness without his discipline forcing it into place. He had never seen his sons choose each other. What startled him wasn't a prayer. It was realizing he'd never created space for it. The boys finished, released hands, reached for their forks like nothing extraordinary had happened. Because to them, maybe it hadn't. Maybe they'd been waiting for permission to be soft all along. Harlan stepped backward into the hallway. His face had gone pale. Iris met his gaze over the boys' heads, and for one fragile moment, she saw it. The crack in his armor. The father beneath the billionaire. The man who'd built walls so high he'd forgotten his sons were on the other side. He turned and walked away, footsteps echoing. Front door closing with a soft click. Harlan thought he had just witnessed healing. He hadn't. Because healing required staying. And as Iris watched the boys eat their breakfast in peaceful silence, she felt the weight of what was coming. The real test wasn't whether she could reach the children. It was whether their father could survive being reached. Harlan found Iris in the kitchen that evening, wiping down counters while the boys did homework upstairs. "We need to talk." His voice was controlled, corporate. the tone he used in boardrooms. Iris set down her cloth. Of course, he didn't sit. Men like Harlan Reed didn't sit for conversations with staff. This morning, the prayer. Did you instruct them to do that? No, sir. Encourage it? Suggest it? No. His jaw worked. Then why? They chose it themselves. My sons don't just spontaneously. He stopped, recalibrating. What I mean is, there's been a significant behavioral shift since you arrived. I need to understand your methods. I don't have methods. Everyone has methods, Miss Bellamy. I sit with them. I wait. I listen. She met his eyes. I stay. Something flickered across his face, too quick to name. The previous staff sat with them. That's literally in the job description. They sat near them. There's a difference. Harlan's fingers drummed against the marble counter. Once, twice, then stopped, as if he'd caught himself in a tell. I've maintained a structured environment for my sons since their mother. He cut himself off. Structure is what they need. Structure, yes. Iris folded the cloth carefully. But structure isn't the same as presence. I am present. The words came out too fast. Defensive. Iris said nothing. The silence stretched like a wound opening. I provide everything they need. Harlan continued, voice rising slightly. This house, their education, security, stability, everything I didn't have. Sir, Iris's voice was gentle, devastating. When was the last time you ate breakfast with them? Harlan froze. His mouth opened, closed. The kitchen clock ticked. I have early meetings. Before that, my schedule is. Before your schedule changed? Silence. Harlan turned away, hand bracing against the counter. His shoulders were rigid, but Iris saw the tremor, barely there, quickly suppressed. I have a calendar, he said finally. Everything is documented. He pulled out his phone with shaking hands, scrolling. His face went pale. Iris didn't need to see the screen to know what he'd found. Breakfast with boys, delegated to staff. Morning routine, monitored via housekeeper reports. Evening check-ins, scheduled for 8 p.m., frequently rescheduled. Meal scheduled. Presence delegated. Care outsourced. I was building the company, Harlan whispered. After their mother died, I had to. Someone had to. Someone did, Iris said quietly. 11 someones. And they all left. Because they couldn't handle. Because your sons needed their father, not another employee. The words hung in the air like an indictment. Harlan's phone slipped from his hand, clattering against the marble. He didn't pick it up. Just stood there, a billionaire in a $15,000 suit, unmade by a simple question. I thought I was protecting them, he breathed. I thought if I could just build something stable enough, big enough, they'd be safe. From what? His eyes met hers, raw. From loss. If you're still here, you already know this isn't about money. Iris stepped closer. Mr. Reed, you can't outsource grief. Not yours. Not theirs. Upstairs, a door opened. Small footsteps. Harlan straightened immediately, walls slamming back into place. This conversation is over. But as he walked away, Iris saw what he couldn't hide. The man was terrified, not of losing control, of admitting he already had. Harlan didn't sleep that night. At 2 a.m., he found Iris in the library, reading by lamplight. She didn't startle when he entered, as if she'd been expecting him. Tell me. His voice was hoarse. What'd you see? What I'm missing? Iris closed her book slowly. Are you sure you want to know? I wouldn't be here if I wasn't. She gestured to the chair across from her. This time he sat. Silas, Iris began. Learned invisibility. Harlan's brow furrowed. He's the most outspoken of the three. With his brothers. Not with you. She leaned forward. He speaks just enough to avoid being asked questions. performs just enough to avoid attention. He's learned that being seen means being measured, and measurement means disappointment. Harlan opened his mouth to argue, then stopped. The school reports, the teacher conferences he delegated. Silas is capable of more. That phrase, repeated over and over. He's protecting himself, Iris continued. If he doesn't reach, he can't fall short. The words landed like stones. Bennett, Iris said softly, learned obedience. That's good. Children need structure. Bennett doesn't follow rules because he understands them. He follows them because defiance costs too much. Her eyes held his. He's the one who cried in the library. The one Maid number 9 tried to comfort. Harlan remembered the incident report. Bennett was disruptive during reading time. He'd never asked why Bennett was crying, only that the disruption be handled. He learned that his feelings are problems to be managed, Iris said. So now he manages them himself, buries them, until he can't. Harlan's hands clenched. And Caleb learned disruption. I know that. Every maid complained. Because disruption is the only thing that works. Iris's voice was gentle, devastating. When Silas disappears and Bennett silences himself, Caleb makes noise. He breaks things. Acts out. Not because he's defiant, because he's desperate. For what? For you to stay in the room long enough to see him. The air left Harlan's lungs. Their behavior isn't random, Mr. Reed. It's adaptation. Iris paused. Silas protects himself from your expectations. Bennett protects you from his needs. Caleb sacrifices himself to keep you present, even if that presence is anger. Children don't act out because they're broken. They act out because something essential is missing. Harlan stood abruptly, pacing. I was there. After their mother died, I was. Physically, he stopped. You were in the house, Iris said quietly. But were you in the room? Were you at the table? Were you present in the moments that didn't fit your schedule? His reflection stared back at him from the darkened window, a stranger in expensive clothes. They weren't protecting themselves from danger, Iris continued. They were protecting themselves from disappointment, from hoping you'd choose them and being wrong again. Harlan's voice broke. I thought I was choosing them. Everything I built. You built an empire. But empires don't need fathers. Your sons do. The truth settled over him like ash. He'd hired people to love his children, so he wouldn't have to risk it. Risk failing. Risk being insufficient. Risk feeling the loss that still lived in his chest like broken glass. I don't know how to fix this, he whispered. You can't fix it. Iris stood. You can only show up differently. Understanding them didn't fix the damage. It only clarified his role in it. As Harlan walked back to his empty bedroom, past 3 closed doors where his son slept, he realized the Maids didn't run from the triplets. They ran from the man who'd taught his children that love was something you hired. And now he had to teach them, and himself, something different. Dr. Brennan's office smelled of leather and old books, the kind of place where wealthy parents receive diagnoses in comfortable chairs. The boys are displaying classic attachment disruption, Dr. Brennan said, reviewing his notes. I recommend maintaining consistent routines, minimal variables, perhaps a behavioral specialist 3 times weekly. Harlan nodded. Structure, experts, solutions he could schedule and delegate. Mr. Reed. He looked up. Iris sat in the corner, hands folded. She'd been so quiet he'd almost forgotten she was there. May I? Dr. Brennan gestured permission. The boys don't need more structure, Iris said. They need you. Dr. Brennan frowned. Miss Bellamy, clinical research clearly indicates. Your research measures behaviors, Iris interrupted gently. Not belonging. Silence. Harlan's jaw tightened. Dr. Brennan is a specialist. I'm not disputing his credentials. Iris met Harlan's eyes. I'm saying his recommendations let you stay exactly where you are. The words hit like a physical blow. You have two choices, Iris continued. Replace me with another specialist who will manage your sons while you manage your company. Keep your schedule. Keep your distance. Keep the control you've built. Or show up. Breakfast. Dinner. Bedtime. Not when it's convenient. When it's required. She paused. And watch everything you've built destabilize. Harlan stood. I can be present and run my company. Can you? Iris's voice was quiet. Because presence isn't a meeting you can reschedule. It's surrender. Dr. Brennan interjected. Perhaps increased quality time. I'm suggesting, Iris said, that he can't hire someone to do this. Not me. Not you. Not anyone. Harlan's hands clenched. You're out of line. I know. You're also right. The admission surprised them both. Harlan sank back into his chair. Outside, traffic hummed, people going places, keeping appointments, maintaining the machinery of importance. If I step back from the company, he said slowly, if I cancel the London expansion, you'll lose millions, Iris finished. Billions, potentially. Yes, the board might remove me as CEO. Iris leaned forward. And your sons will have a father. The equation was simple, brutal. Everything he'd built to protect them, the wealth, the security, the empire, required the one thing they actually needed, his absence. Dr. Brennan closed his folder. Mr. Reed, you don't have to choose. Yes, I do. Harlan looked at Iris. If I do this, there's no guarantee it works. No, I might fail. Change isn't dramatic. It's expensive in ways power doesn't prepare you for. Harlan stood, walked to the window. 30 floors below, the city gleamed. Schedule a board meeting, he said quietly. I'm stepping down as CEO. Dr. Brennan's eyes widened. Mr. Reed. But Harlan was looking at Iris. What happens now? She met his gaze. Now you go home. And stay there. The first breakfast was a disaster. Harlan sat at the head of the table at 7 a.m., coffee cooling in his hands, while 3 boys stared at him like he was a stranger who'd walked into the wrong house. Good morning, he said. Silence. Silas's eyes darted to the doorway. Bennett gripped his fork too tightly. Caleb didn't eat at all, just watched his father with the wariness of a child who'd learned that presence didn't mean permanence. Iris set down plates and retreated to the kitchen. This wasn't hers to fix. Harlan cleared his throat. How did everyone sleep? Fine, Silas muttered. Bennett nodded. Caleb said nothing. The silence stretched until Harlan couldn't bear it. I have to make some calls. Then go. Silas's voice was flat. We're used to it. Harlan froze. The words weren't angry. They were matter-of-fact. Resignation, not rebellion. He stayed in his chair. The second breakfast was worse. The third, marginally better. By the 5th, Caleb actually asked for the salt without Iris prompting him. Small things. Uncomfortable things. But things that hadn't existed before. Weeks passed. The boys didn't transform. Bennett still went quiet when anxious. Silas still withdrew when questioned too directly. Caleb still tested boundaries with the persistence of someone who'd learned that chaos was safer than hope. But something shifted beneath the surface. They stopped watching the door when Harlan entered a room. They stopped performing perfect behavior to avoid his departure. They stopped bracing. One Tuesday morning, Caleb spilled orange juice across the table. His face went white, waiting for the explosion, the disappointment, the reason his father would leave. Harlan reached for a towel. It happens. Caleb blinked. You're not mad. It's juice, son. Not the end of the world. Bennett's shoulders dropped. Silas exhaled. The boys didn't need another rule. They needed proof that someone would stay. Iris watched from the kitchen doorway as Harlan helped Caleb clean the spill. Awkward, uncertain, but there. His phone buzzed repeatedly in his pocket. Ignored. The board meeting he'd postponed could wait. This couldn't. That evening, Silas asked his father to help with homework. Not Iris. His father. Harlan sat at the kitchen table, reading through math problems he didn't understand, while Silas explained fractions with the patience of someone teaching a concept for the first time. The roles had reversed, and Harlan let them. Bennett started leaving his door open at night. Not wide, just a crack. Enough to hear footsteps. Enough to know he wasn't alone. Caleb stopped breaking things to get attention. Started asking for it instead. "Dad, can you?" "Yes." The answer came before the question finished. Iris began packing her things one Sunday afternoon. Not because she was leaving in failure. Because her work was nearly done. Harlan found her folding clothes in her room. "You're not going." "I was always temporary, Mr. Reed." "Harlan, and no, you weren't." She smiled softly. "Your sons don't need me anymore. They have what they needed all along." "What's that?" "You. Staying." He leaned against the doorframe, the same place he'd stood watching his sons pray, the moment that cracked him open. "I'm not good at this yet." Good enough is enough. Most people wait for perfection before they try. Your sons just needed you to be present. Downstairs, laughter echoed. Bennett's, then Silas's, then Caleb's, pure and unguarded. Harlan closed his eyes. "I almost missed this." "But you didn't." She was right. He'd lost the CEO position, the London deal, the respect of men who measured worth in acquisitions. But he'd gained 3 sons who no longer flinched when he entered a room. That was the trade. And for the first time in years, Harlan Reed knew he'd chosen right.